All right, Suzanne, thanks for coming into my little recording studio setup here. How are you doing today?
I am good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
That's all right. That's all right. Suzanne, let me just start off by saying, so for everyone out there, I was fortunate enough to be a coachee of Suzanne. I went for some training myself with Suzanne, and I had a fantastic time, getting help from Suzanne. But I guess, Suzanne, just to start things off, like maybe perhaps just a brief introduction of who you are and what sort of help and guidance do you provide to
Thank you.
executives or senior executives alike. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Yeah, I'm an executive and leadership coach. That's kind of the title that I go by. But for most people that come into contact with me, usually during the consultation, I just say, I'm a people coach. So regardless of what is happening in your life or where you're going, um, it's basically coaching can help you make some changes or make some transitions. So
Yeah.
that's the work that I like to do with clients.
Yeah. And how did you get to that, Suzanne? Was there some sort of pivotal moment in your life that where you go, right, this is how I want to help people, like, yeah, we can kind of go back. Was there a pivotal moment that kind of triggered you
Yeah,
to make this decision?
absolutely. Uh, Pivotal is a key word. I'd probably say a collision of things as well, actually, coming together. So all my background is in the people space. So HR, learning and development, talent, leadership. I've also been a qualified practicing social worker back in the UK. So
Mm,
that's my interest in human development, human psychology, human behavior. And it was after actually being laid off from a job in learning and development in Hong Kong. And part of the package was to help to get retrained. So I did a coaching accreditation as part of that. And realized actually I'd been coaching most of my career, just didn't realize it was coaching because in HR, social work, learning and development, that's what you're doing. You're facilitating
it's
somebody.
amazing how layoffs have so much negative
Yeah,
connotation, but for, I guess, for at least the two of us, it represents new opportunities, right, to for
yeah,
growth. Yeah, which is a scary word sometimes, for a lot of what I
yeah,
call type B creatives, who are just very shy, about their capabilities.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And and I love coaching people from all different spaces as well. So as you know, coaching people in the music industry, but in hospitality, uh, agriculture, F&B, um, entertainment, yeah, all sorts, as well as the corporates, because people just
Yeah,
assume that coaching is for the kind of corporations.
yeah. Well, maybe we can get into that because like right now, certainly, where I'm sitting at with the intersection of music and gaming, we're seeing a lot of layoffs, right? I think Warner Music Atlantic Records just announced that they've just laid off 150 staff on top of the 750 that they already laid off a couple months back. And I think and Microsoft, Activision, Blizzard just announced like another 700, no, another 650 or so job
Wow.
cuts. And if
Yeah.
I'm one of them, like usually, you know, I think I'm kind of immune to it by now. But I think a lot of like young executives are probably thinking, feeling defeated, not sure where to go,
Yeah.
feeling a bit lost. Do you have any advice, with this group of people as to what are some of the kind of low hanging fruit that they can do right now so
Yeah.
that they don't feel shit about themselves?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think there's two probably key areas of this. One is our own mindset. So, what are the stories we're telling ourselves about the current situation? And then the other one is and then what can I do about it? So,
Mm,
the first one is, and this is back from my HR days, is that people aren't made redundant, positions are made redundant. So
yeah,
it's not personal. It's the
100%. Yeah,
position that's made redundant.
yeah,
You just happen to be in that position. So it's not a personal thing, even though it feels extremely personal at the time. That has then a massive impact on our emotions and our self-esteem and our confidence. And that again is where the working with a coach can help you, because what we tend to do is then we'll focus just on the negative aspects, and I'm no
Mm.
good, nobody wants me, I'm rubbish at this, all that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I
Whereas,
went through all of that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Me too, me too. Whereas actually, what a coach can help you do is help you focus on your strengths. So, what is it you bring? What is this? What are you learning from this experience? Where are you
Yeah,
going with this?
that's excellent. That's excellent. And I think one thing that I realized, like in my journey anyway, of going through these like layoffs, is that so I would categorize myself as a type B creative. Like don't like confrontation, just kind of want to be
Yeah,
known for my craft and producing
yeah,
music. But I would argue that more than ever, I think it's important for type B creatives to actually learn type A skills, i.e., how to be more assertive, how to get yourself out there, how to sell, et
yeah.
cetera, et cetera. Like, what would you say to like a typical type B creative? It's like, oh, I don't know what to do. This is who I am. I'm not sure like how to make that first step. What would what sort of advice would you give to someone like that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and the answer is massive actually. But just off the top of my head, it really is playing to people's strengths. So getting people to think about, okay, what are my strengths in, and what do I feel confident at doing in my own business? So things like if you are a performer, for example,
Mm,
that going out on stage is being assertive. How do I put myself forward? How do I step out in front of a whole crowd and make myself vulnerable? And it's exactly the same in a different setting. So, how do we tap
yeah,
into that type of thing that you can do day to day and feel really comfortable doing, and applying exactly that same thing, but just in a slightly different setting?
yeah, 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 yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So like going back to again like to these people that are lay off, like where do you think, like if someone comes to you, what would be like the typical kind of like program, if you like, that recommend them going through? Because I like that, I guess people come in different shapes and forms. Some would be like, oh, I don't know my potential. Some might be like, oh no, I don't know how to pay the bills now. Oh, what's my wife going to think about me? Oh, I'm letting down my daughters, or yeah, I think people who get laid off will have kind of different problems. So how do you normally, I guess, how do you normally kind of put on that doctor's hat and kind of diagnose where they are, and then kind of lay out that program for them to succeed, going
Yeah.
forward?
I love that metaphor, and that's exactly what I do. So it's really asking the right questions that taps into what's happening for this person right now and what is important to them. So as you say, is it about paying the bills? So is it kind of financial or security or something that they need around enabling that their family can live?
Yeah.
Or is it about pride and self-esteem? Is it about
Mm.
status?
Do you find that there's a lot of that with Asians? The pride and self-esteem, the face thing.
Oh, across the board. Honestly,
Yeah. Oh.
yeah, it's not specific. I think I find a lot of this work that I do, because I'm a people coach. A lot of the work I do, actually, you find that it spans across cultures. The culture is just another layer. So what I try and do is get below that layer and actually look at the people. What is it that's driving you?
Mm.
So you have every type of person in every type of culture. If you just like look below the culture,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you kind of have, like, when you approach a problem, you need to know when to play the diversity card and when to kind of play that we're all of the same card.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
and I think it just takes experience, just to kind of understand, which lever to pull in which in what kind of
yeah,
situations.
yeah.
Yeah.
And not being afraid to go there as well and have those conversations, and say, how does your culture features in this, or how does your upbringing feature in this? What
Yeah.
is helping you, what is hindering you? Because most of what I do, the approach that I have in coaching is what we call narrative coaching, and it's
Oh,
based around the
what's that then?
narratives. Yeah, it's the narratives that we tell ourselves. And quite often, those narratives have been given to us along our journey. So we just relive those narratives. So we just try and unpick the narrative and rewrite a new narrative that is much more helpful. So, what is
Mm,
going to help us? What are we saying to ourselves that is
right,
going to
because
help?
there's probably a lot of
Yeah,
preconditioning that we've kind of laid down for ourselves, whether it's through society or for parents or for coworkers, et cetera,
yeah.
et cetera.
Schooling, everything. Yeah, we've been given all of these narratives,
Yeah,
or written a script, if you like. We can talk in the creative language. You've been
yeah,
written a
yeah,
script or a set list. And you're just
yeah, yeah,
following it along because that's what you've been given and that's all you've ever known. And it's like, let's write a new set list.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Isn't that interesting? I mean, I think a lot of us have been taught that, like, okay, you got to come up with your own playbook. But again, using this analogy, playbooks can get old and stale. And one's playbook might not be able to serve you anymore,
Yes.
depending on where you are.
Yeah.
So it's important to, like, for me anyway, I think it's important to always kind of refresh and kind of just, like question myself, like, is this playbook serving me right now, or am
Yeah.
I due for some sort of like refresh, like,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's a part of what I do as well. It's another line that I use quite frequently about what I've learned that has got me here may not get me there. So
yeah,
sometimes we have to, they say unlearn, technically you can't unlearn something, but like relearn. So because most of our behavior is just learned behavior, we've learned and it's usually serves us well. But then we get
yeah,
to a point where we're stuck, and it's because that behavior is not serving us well. So
yeah,
what is it we need to do? Exactly like you say. Do we need to refresh that playbook? Do we need to think about, okay, so I got to here, that's great, but I now want to get to there. So what will help me do differently to get to there?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And let's just flip things around. Is anyone ready for coaching?
Good question. Um, we do talk about readiness actually in coaching.
Mm,
Coaching is not for everyone, and it's not. It's a matter of timing as well. So is the timing right? So in coaching, we as the coach, we don't fix anything. We don't give anything. What we do is we enable and facilitate. So the coachee has to come prepared to do the work, prepared to be open, curious, and willing to try new things, willing to take a step or make a change. That's what's required from a coachee. And sometimes people come along, have the kind of introductory conversation, and then think, okay, the timing's not quite right for me. But then they come back 6 months later, and then they go boom, and away they go with the coaching. So, yeah,
mm.
readiness
What
is key.
and what do you think is going through them internally in this kind of 6 months period then? I guess change of circumstance, or like what do you think is going through their mind right now? Like,
I think some people just need to percolate and process information. Um, they need to get themselves ready because sometimes part of that clinging on to the old behavior that got us here, because the messages are that made us successful. So I want to cling on to it. And it's where I feel comfortable. It's where I feel that I've achieved things. Um, and so it just takes a little time for them to process, okay, I need to let go of that to move forward.
yeah,
And everybody is different. So, yeah, it's very unique.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's just say, like, we go back to, some of the examples that I cited with the recent layoffs with Warner Music, Atlantic Records, Microsoft, Activision, Blizzard. Any message that you wanna, like convey, to these, group of people who might might be thinking that what you're doing might be able to help them out with where they need to go.
Sure. Um, I think probably a couple of messages. One is, which you and I have alluded to anyway, very frequently, you can't say all the time, but very frequently, it ends up being an opportunity as opposed to
Mm,
being, a disaster.
yeah,
It feels it at the time. So, and again, you can't say 100%, but most people you speak to that have been through a layoff actually say, "Oh, that kind of forced me to do something different, and now I'm here." So I think that's one key thing, and the
mm,
other is that yeah, it's not personal, but it feels personal, and it's okay to kind of go through that. It's almost like grief, if you like, to go through an
yeah,
emotional cycle. You just don't want to stay there too long. You don't want to get
yeah,
stuck in that cycle. You actually want to come out the other side. But it's
mm,
okay to feel shit.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, Suzanne, is there anything else that you would also like to communicate, to the, I guess, music and gaming executives community, that we haven't covered?
um, I think the key thing is, like you say, that coaching actually can work for anybody. So, regardless of industry, regardless of background, regardless of culture, and give it a try. If it's not for you, that's fair enough. But if coaching suits you, then it can absolutely accelerate your progress.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And where can people find you then, Suzanne?
Okay, I've got a website which is Suzanne dash or hyphen silver.com. So quite easy to find, or just search for me on LinkedIn. There's not too many Suzanne Silvers around. There are a few, but not too many. So I'm usually quite easy to find.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And just for the listeners out there, it looks like you got a pretty nice pad there. Is that Koh Samui Thailand that you're at right now? And where do you spend your time normally?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got a place out here, so and it's great access to the rest of Asia and to the world. I have clients from New Zealand to New York, so
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's the world that we live in right now, huh?
yeah, yeah, cool.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for your time to have a chat with me today. Had a really, really good time being a coach of yours, and I hope the people that just got affected by the layoffs in both the music and gaming community can benefit
Yeah,
from your guidance and help. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and it's been a
Oh,
pleasure talking to you again, Eric. I wish you well.
thanks, Suzanne. I'm just gonna end the recording here now. Yep.